Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Michael Noland here, and tonight, you know what I want to do? We're going to cover a ton of territory here tonight, folks. I'm going to be talking about Gene Simmons, who has often said that rock and roll is dead. And then I'm going to cover an article that interviewed Paul Stanley and his whole thoughts on the whole matter. And then I'm going to go to an article that talks about how rock and roll could very well still face a revival. Wouldn't that be wonderful? But there's some problems with their whole process on that. And we're even going to be talking about Mötley Crüe tonight. All right, so we're going to start off with Gene Simmons and his often quoted comments that he feels that rock and roll is dead. And I'm going to be turning to an interview, a recent interview with Paul Stanley, who was asked the same thing, but basically if he agreed with Gene Simmons or not. Paul replied by saying, that's interesting. That is an interesting soundbite. Now, he went on to say that rock and roll kind of ebbs and flows right now, and that he felt that the next big band to really break through wouldn't be derivative. It wouldn't sound like one of the great bands of the past. Now, I'm sorry, Paul, but that's pretty damned ignorant in my opinion, and I'm going to be talking about all of that throughout this video, by the way. Because you know what? The interesting bands that are being listened to right now, I've covered them in past videos, haven't I? Greta Van Fleet, Dorothy, Rival Sons, Dirty Honey, and guess what, baby? They sound a whole lot like classic rock, or at least have classic rock elements firmly embedded into those bands. Which leads me to the article, The Future of Rock Music. A generation of fans are waiting for the rock genre to make a comeback. And you know what? The article is very upbeat, but totally misses the mark. You see, it admits there's some exciting music out there, but then it credits the European Parliament for escalating the future of rock and roll through Eurovision. Yeah, the same thing that brought us ABBA. Now, first of all, I'm an ABBA fan. Like I said, I love rock and roll, and I love great pop music, and as far as I'm concerned, ABBA did it well. But Eurovision has never brought us anything truly, truly great, in my opinion, as far as rock and roll goes. Now, I know there's going to be a few of you out there that are going to disagree with that. You'll even give me some examples of what has come out of that show, but I gotta tell you, for the most part, I don't think it's done a damn thing for rock and roll. As a matter of fact, it's just an extension of a TV show from the 50s and early 60s, the Ted Mack Amateur Hour. Then we saw, Star Search, and oh my God, it just doesn't stop. And this is nothing more than just another one of those kind of events in my mind. You're not getting brand new talent from the garages who have made their way through the clubs. No, no, no. The folks who show up on this show are very well represented, have somehow wound themselves up into the tendrils of the music industry and got their damned guest shot. You know what? In my viewpoint, these shows need to go by way of the dinosaur ASAP, people, ASAP. They are just another extension of what is killing rock and roll, inducting people who are at best pop rock stars, or at worst someone from an entirely different genre. But that's the world we live in today, isn't it? Now, this article did bring up a good point. They said in this article that the reason that rock and roll has suffered of late is that the bands that come out usually aren't bands. Now, by that, they meant they're not identified as a solid, definite group of people. Now, when you go back far enough in rock and roll, of course, we're going to get to the Beatles. Who didn't know Ringo? As a matter of fact, I'll prove it. I want you guys to go along with me, okay? The first name will be John. We're going to be talking about the Beatles and see if you can get the names in order that I choose. John, Paul, George, and Ringo. That was a band. Same thing with Led Zeppelin. Not only all four members being vital to the sound, but each of the four members had their own definite fan base. How about the Police, Copeland, Summers, and of course Sting? Now those were rock bands. And in this article, what's his name from Maroon 5 was complaining and everything. How many of you can name every single member of Maroon 5? I can barely remember that dude's name. And this article also brings out that actually rock and roll was still leading the field in the 2000s. I guess it's talking about the early 2000s, but you know what? I remember that time period clearly, and that was when rock and roll was already into a full nosedive, people. Then the article goes on to hint that rock and roll will finally take hold when it embraces a more heavy metal approach. You know, just the term heavy metal bugs me. There are so many subgenres in heavy metal, and some of them are great, and some of them I can't stand. But here's the thing, no matter whether you like this band or that band, or you don't like heavy metal approach at all, or you're a total metal head, the thing is, the better bands, in my opinion, of that genre is the bands that know how to write a hook, know how to write a melody, and know how to structure a song. But as far as heavy metal being the future of rock and roll, I can only hope not. Elements of it, yes, I agree. But for it to become the dominant form of rock and roll is a step backwards to me. Now, I don't agree with Paul Stanley here at all. I don't think that it should be a sin for a rock band to start from wherever a classic rock band in the day as a pedestal and then launch from there. I'll prove my point. How about the Beatles? A few of their albums had them covering what sounded very much like their originals did on that album, and those songs existed far before John and Paul wrote most of the songs that wound up on those albums, right? You see, the Beatles were smart. They knew that the 50s had a whole lot to offer the 60s. And guess what? They structured their harmonies much in the same way between John and Paul as the Everly Brothers did, which I've brought up in the past as well. And of course, Led Zeppelin, to the point of ripping off some of the greatest blues singer-songwriters and artists of all time. But they did launch from that point, and look what they managed to create out of that so-called beginning pedestal. And the list goes on. The Police, who used certain aspects of punk, added with a great pop sensibility with some Caribbean sounds mixed in, and bam, you've got a brand new sound we never heard before. But you know what? As long as we have these kind of TV shows, along with the award shows, can you believe it? Mötley Crüe got the Best Live Rock Concert Award of 2022. Really? You know what? I seem to remember a certain Paul McCartney touring last year, Bruce Springsteen doing his thing, Robert Plant and Alison Krauss, amazing audiences before them, smaller venues, but still, and this talking ape of a band gets the top billing, the top award? Are you freaking kidding me? But see, as long as modern audiences pay attention to any of this crap, we're gonna get Rihanna and the Super Bowl halftime show, aren't we? Television spawned singers fronting bands like Queen. Television winners becoming the hottest female star of the last decade. But you know, folks, there is hope. A lot of these award shows can't get anybody to turn them on to watch them. Instead, most people will watch the highlights provided on YouTube, right? And as far as these TV shows, I can almost just feel it in the air. First of all, their numbers are down as well, and you can just feel it. We're just getting crap from them anyway. That's all we ever, for the most part, ever got from them. And any good that we did get from them was far outweighed by, well, not just the bad, but the absolutely gaggable. But we're coming to the end of Talking Monkeys accepting awards for being the hottest live act of the year. I can just feel it, folks, and I think you guys can too. And guess what? Those bands I mentioned, Dorothy, Rival Sons, Dirty Honey, Greta Van Fleet, if you haven't had a chance to look and listen to those bands, you know what? You're doing yourself a disservice. All right, that's my video for today, folks. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. That helps the channel grow. It kicks in the YouTube algorithm to better identify the channel. It shoots these videos over to people's home pages or through search. It helps a whole lot. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel as of yet, please consider doing so. It's so easy. All you have to do is hit that subscribe to the tribe button, and more on that, and then tap that top bell icon, and you'll be notified of all my future videos on classic rock, the rock industry as it stands today, and as well as the future of rock. All right, I'm Michael Noland. I said more on the tribe. You know what? When I always sign off, I say, we are the tribe. And that's important, folks, because guess what? Through the comments, through you subscribing, people are starting to take notice of this channel. And we've got a bigger viewership than you might think. Okay, so I'm Michael Noland. I hope you guys are doing well, and I'll see you in my next video.